Okay, in this segment, I'm going to discuss the types of hypotheses that will require a chi-square analysis in order to test. I'm using this handout here, as you can see written at the top of the page, or it simply says chi-square hypotheses, so you might want to have this handout handy. This is a two-pager, or at least I'm going to refer to two pages in this segment. And I went into a little bit more detail than I usually do in terms of writing on the handouts, so I am going to refer to this handout, probably bordering on reading it to you. But as you can see from the handout, if you have it in front of you, one of the first things to keep in mind is that you are dealing with two variables, and each of those variables are measured on either the nominal or the ordinal level. So in other words, a chi-square analysis will, by definition, deal with two nominal level variables, two ordinal level variables, or one nominal level variable and one ordinal level variable. Now, you may recall from weeks past that nominal and or ordinal level variables are referred to as categorical variables, and the reason for that is that they are variables that contain categories. Now, that's a little bit of an abstract concept, but perhaps it will come clear when we start to get into some of the examples of chi-square hypotheses, which is coming. So first thing keep in mind, so in other words, what that also means, since chi-square analysis deals only with categorical level data, chi-square analysis has nothing to do with mean-based statistics. Chi-square analysis has nothing to do with means, standard deviations, variance, nothing like that. Chi-square analysis deals only with what we'll deal with a little bit later on, frequencies or counts. Frequencies, all right? So categorical level data only, categorical level variables only, nominal or ordinal level variables. You're not dealing with means, not dealing with standard deviation, not dealing with variance, only frequencies. So that's the first thing to keep in mind is categorical level data, nominal or ordinal. The second thing to keep in mind, and this is as if not more important, chi-square is a test of independence, or relationships. Those two terms are used interchangeably. Independence/dependence or relationships. Okay, so chi-square in a nutshell tests whether or not two categorical variables are related or not. In this sense, as you can see from the handout, chi-square analysis is somewhat like Pearson's R. If you remember way back when, several weeks ago, Pearson's R is also an analysis that measures the relationship between two variables, except when you're conducting Pearson's R analysis, those two variables are measured on the interval level. So with Pearson's R, you had two variables, and you're testing whether or not they're related or independent of each other or not, except those variables are measured on the interval level. Chi-square analysis is similar in that it too is a test of relationship, except the two variables that you're testing the relationship between are measured on the nominal or ordinal level. And again, chi-square analysis can involve two nominal level variables. Chi-square analysis can involve two ordinal level variables. And chi-square analysis can involve it can involve a combination of one nominal level variable and one ordinal level variable. So when considering the following hypotheses, and if you're following along with this handout, you'll see that I have four sets of hypotheses that would require chi-square analysis in order to test. And we're going to go over them within the context of this segment. So looking at example number one of hypotheses requiring chi-square to test. You can see underneath that heading, example number one, there are two hypotheses, H sub 1 and H sub 0. These are concepts you've dealt with before. H sub 1 is the research hypothesis, also referred to as the alternative hypothesis. H sub 0 is the null hypothesis. In the past, we've referred to the null hypothesis as the hypothesis of equality. However, in chi-square analysis, the null hypothesis is referred to as the hypothesis of independence or no relationship. So when you think about that, if two things are independent of each other, they have nothing to do with each other, there's no relationship between them. So that's why the null hypothesis is not referred to as the hypothesis of equality or sameness. It's referred to as the hypothesis of independence or no relationship. So getting back to example number 1. H sub 1, the research hypothesis, the alternative hypothesis, H sub 1, states sex is related to or dependent upon income. Sex is related or dependent on income. But let's take a closer look at that research hypothesis before going on. Sex, measured as male, female, so our variable called sex has two categories, male, female, is related to or dependent on income. Now in the past, we've used income measured as an interval or even categorical level variable in the past, but in this case I specify what those categories are. Income measured as at or below poverty line, so that's one category, at or below poverty line, and then the other category is above poverty line. So we have two variables, each of which, the way I have formulated them here, we have two variables, each of which are measured on the categorical level. Sex, measured as male, female, two categories, is related to or dependent on income, measured as at or below the poverty line, category number 1, above poverty line, category number 2. The null hypothesis is quite similar with the exception of some very important differences. The null hypothesis, the null hypothesis of independence or no relationship, H sub 0, sex, measured as male-female, is not related to or is independent of income, measured as at or below the poverty line, category 1, above poverty line, category number 2. So the research hypothesis, H sub 1, is stating there is a relationship. The null hypothesis, H sub 0, is stating there is no relationship. Those two variables, those two categorical variables, are independent of one another. There's no relationship between them. And again, I just want to note before going on to the next clip that there are two variables mentioned in these hypotheses, sex and income, and those two variables are measured at the categorical level, and each variable has two categories, two potential response contingencies or categories each. Sex, male, female, income, at or below poverty line versus above poverty line. All right, I'm going to cut this off, and then I will go over the following three examples, example number 2, number 3, and number 4 in the next clip.